And thanks, Dr. Rishi, for giving this opportunity. I'll be speaking on the melting cornea. To maintain a healthy ocular surface and preventing the cornea from melting, actually a lot of factors are working over there, right from ocular adnexa, tears, corneal nerves, epithelium keratocytes, and of course immunologically competent cell types all work together to prevent the cornea from melting. For example, if there is a corneal abrasion, it can attract microbes and polymorphs are attracted, and it results in an inflammatory cascade resulting in necrosis, and it can extend laterally or deeply to cause desmetocele and perforation. This usually happens in microbial infection. There are factors which can cause corneal anesthesia, and this can result in reduced epithelial cell proliferation, reduced lacrimal secretion, dry ocular surface, and epithelial breakdowns. So neurotropic keratitis is another important cause of melting cornea. Now the peripheral cornea is quite different from the central one because it's close to limbal vascular arcade. Any inflammatory stimulus in the form of microbial infection or immune complex deposition, as happens in collagen vascular disorders, trauma or malignancy can initiate an inflammatory cascade resulting in release of proteolytic enzymes and causing the peripheral cornea to melt. So there is a lot of mechanism which can actually result in melting cornea, but the bottom line is eyes melt or the ocular surface melt when cheated, and this cheating can be actually infectious, broadly divided into infectious or non-infectious one. The infectious causes usually starts with epithelial defect. It may result in desmetocele and perforation with intraocular content extrusion, or it may present with a chronic indolent fungal ulcer. There may be a viral etiology with stromal melting. Now coming to non-infectious causes, an important cause is keratomalacia or vitamin A deficiency, specifically in our country. Chemical injuries causes limbal damage and results in melting of the cornea. Leg ophthalmos or neuroparalytic keratitis, you can appreciate the lesion is in the inferior cornea along with xerosis of the cornea. There have been reports of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents causing melting of the cornea. Collagen vascular disorders like rheumatoid and other non-rheumatoid causes are there. Associated scleritis is there in these cases. Now Murans has its characteristic appearance, and along with it, it's a diagnosis of exclusion. And then there can be post-traumatic or post-surgical melt too. One need to take a proper history to pinpoint the diagnosis and come to diagnosis. Or complete ophthalmic evaluation, including specific emphasis on lid functions, tear film status, corneal sensation is very important in these cases. One should take corneal scraping and or biopsy if infectious etiology is to be ruled out. If you suspect a peripheral ulcerative keratitis, a battery of tests needs to be done to come to the diagnosis. And the management, there is no hard and fast rule in managing melting cornea. You have to adopt a customized approach. Treatment of underlying etiology is important in these cases. You may adopt a conservative or surgical approach depending on the particular case. Now, coming to the conservative management, first of all, we need to stop epithelial drugs like the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, or if the patient is using topical anesthetic drugs like Paracaine or something, we need to stop that. This is a case of SJS. We can see a beautiful Seidels positive over there. This type of small leak can be managed with a single day patching only. No need for glue or anything else. Use of preservative-free lubricants to moisten the cornea, and punctal plugs can also be used. Now, depending on the etiology, you may either choose to use topical fortified antibiotics if you're suspecting infectious etiology, or topical steroids if the etiology is inflammatory. Vitamin A supplementation in cases of protein energy malnutrition. Tablet systemic doxycycline and tetracycline are proven collagenase inhibitors. They can be added up and used as an adjuvant. If you are suspecting PUK and it has got inflammatory etiology, then you have to manage with a systemic immunosuppressant. Some cases which cannot be managed conservatively have to be taken up surgically. Now, cyanoacrylate glue, as Dr. Rishi has already pointed, should not be used for central perforation. Like in this case, this is post glue, 2 months post picture, and lot of vascularization it has attracted over there. It can also be used for corneal melts. This is a case of Murans. 70-year-old male, not so aggressive Murans is there. So managed this case with topical steroids and glue. Now, amniotic membrane grafting provides tectonic support and also has anti-inflammatory properties and helps in healing of the epithelium. It can be used in corneal perforation, a small size perforation less than 2 millimeter in size, as multiple tiny graft, and then you can put an overlay graft and secure it with sutures or glue. It can be used in peripheral ulcerative keratitis also, like this is case of Murans in a young male. So it was quite aggressive Murans, managed with superficial debridement of the edges with conjunctival resection and amniotic membrane along with bandage contact lens and systemic immunosuppressants. Now this lady had received radiotherapy for acoustic neuroma and developed a persistent epithelial defect. You can appreciate very well in the first picture. It was managed with a amniotic membrane secured with suture, and then a bandage contact lens placed, a temporary lateral tarsorrhaphy being done, and then inferior punctal cauterization was done. Conjunctival flap is another method to heal a persistent epithelial defect, or in cases of neurotropic or neuropalatic keratitis. But once you place a conjunctival flap, it hinders the monitoring of progression of the disease, and also the antimicrobial agents, the penetration is suboptimal. Coming to the lamellar patch grafts, this is a case of post-traumatic thinning. You can manage this with a crescentic graft. Limited peritomy is being done over there, and then the bed was prepared. Then you can place the cornea on artificial entry chamber and fashion the graft to desired size, shape and depth. You can make a crescentric or banana shaped graft in cases of PUKs. And then this is secured using nylon interrupted sutures. This is another case of query post-viral melting. It's old lady, couldn't get a GA clearance, so had to take up in LA. You need to decompress such cornea first. Marking of the cornea being done. Not much of tissue to remove. You can also use alcohol to remove the epithelium, debriding the edges. Just to ask Dr. Rishi sir, can you appreciate Duas layer here? This is another case in which there is corneal melting in the periphery. This lady was negative for all the workup of collagen vascular disorder. You can appreciate in the upper left corner, the ASOCT shows distorted contour. So after lamellar keratoplasty, for this patient, a good corneal contour could be achieved. Here is a small clip of the same patient. You need to go manually in such case, layer by layer dissection. And then try to get DM bearing is being done. Here again I couldn't appreciate Duas layer. And then it is secured. So I try to manage these eyes with lamellar keratoplasty because it's an extraocular procedure and the chances of rejection is less. But in some cases when the perforation is quite obvious, like in this case, you cannot manage with lamellar keratoplasty. You have no other option left but to go ahead with a tectonic graft. In this case, I did therapeutic keratoplasty along with vitrectomy, and this former regained 6/9 vision with aphakic correction. So there are a lot of modalities which you can use to manage a case of melting cornea, right from conservative approach to grafting and to collagen cross-linking, as doctor has already pointed out. So, but each case has to be managed and customized. I thank you all for your patient listening.